Greetings, my friend. Just want to share with you a brief teaching introduction on the medicine wheel of transformation and how it relates to the moon cycle and the wave of light that we're riding. So there's many, many levels of teachings in relation to the medicine wheel. For me, I find it's really important that we're coming to understand the very core of the medicine wheel so that we can learn to relate with it as a part of life, as a part of nature, and therefore be able to be in that flow of the medicine wheel. So, if we take ourselves back to a point in time where we literally were learning from nature, we were in the school of life. We observed, we listened, and therefore we knew. And we couldn't argue with it. So if you go back to there, you can see one of the first observations was that of day and night. How at the end of every day, the sun went down and it turned to night. And rather than freak out, oh my God, the sun is gone, we came to know that the sun would actually arise again. So we saw in the big picture of just one day, for instance, that life was flowing in a circle. So there you have two parts already, night and day. And just within those two parts, we began to understand life and death in many different ways and see that there was a flow that was circling, and also that there was no reason to necessarily freak out because it's a part of the whole. So we're learning this in many aspects in our own life now, where if we're experiencing challenges or maybe what we think is a failure, come to see are actually our biggest learning experiences and our opportunities to grow from, really. So rather than freak out and get stuck in them or judge them, we're learning to embrace them the best we can, or at least receive them the best we can, knowing that life will not always be this way, and um, that we're capable of getting through it, to receive it, and trusting that it's a part of the process and teaching us something. We don't always know what, but it's teaching us something. So we can receive it as a gift, even. We can even come to celebrate it. Say, yes, thank you. Thank you for punching me in the face. I needed that, apparently. Somehow. I don't know. So in this contrast of life that we experience, we saw also that there's a man and there's a woman, there's a masculine and a feminine. And we began to understand that there are aspects of life in which the man and woman are more equipped for. And of course, it's not just about man and woman, but it's about the balance of the masculine and feminine, which we all carry these two components in ourselves at varying degrees. Naturally, we may be stronger in some ways than other ways. In other ways, we may be out of balance with our natural state as well. We may have experienced trauma, for instance, where we may not want to express certain aspects of ourselves in, say, a masculine way or a feminine way. So we counter it by doing the opposite. And we learned really early on that it was about balance. We had to learn to be in balance with ourselves so that we could be in relation to others and be able to honor the relations, not just with people, but with our surroundings, with the planet, with nature, and all of its elements in everything that exists. So balance became a critical aspect of life in itself. And now we're seeing life is very much out of balance in so many ways. It's hard to even understand our own natural state and the natural state of life. It's very masculine driven, for instance, in many ways, where it's about action, doing, performance, do. And we can feel guilty or ashamed for feeling the time or need to put our feet up, to relax, or to even go into nature, for instance, and to listen and to observe. And we see it's even hard to be in conversation sometimes with one another because everyone's just trying to speak, 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 and no one's actually listening. So this is just one example of masculine and feminine traits. Neither trait is better. Balance is what we seek. So in this yin and yang, the masculine and feminine, we see it as a natural part of life that's always flowing, contributing towards one another, cause and effect, action, reaction. So it's how the universe works. And we can correlate this to also the full moon and the new moon. So here you have what we'll call the new moon and the full moon. And if you can guess which would be the masculine and feminine, relating the feminine to the new moon in its gentleness and the full moon in its fire and its power and its warrior, you can see that they're two contrasting energies. Now, what we began to do in recognizing that it was helpful to begin breaking down and understanding that there are more chapters to life than just life and death. So we break it into 2 parts, now into 4 parts, and you can see that it's in many ways really helpful to understand how we are in relation to the 4 parts rather than just 2 parts. So again, if you correlate it to the full moon, as we are in the new moon traveling midway point, we know when we are midway down to the full moon, and that things have shifted quite a bit already from that point to this point, and then across to the 3rd and 4th quarter of the full moon, things are always shifting. So we can relate this also as we saw the stages of life. So as we are born with the new moon, we come down midway point to the full moon, which we can relate also going from the east around to the direction of the south that we enter into, the 2nd quarter. Things are going to start shifting for us. So this first part is in relation to the first chapter of our life as children, where we're coming into the physical body, coming to land here on earth, to connect and feel that physical nurturing that's so important for us, so valuable for us to feel secure, to feel safe, to feel nurtured, supported, and loved. So it's a very gentle stage of life, really important. We're also establishing the foundation, the platform for the life that we're living, for us to feel secure. So we correlate that to the first stage of the moon cycle and understanding, okay, it's good to ease into this one. We don't need to just go out with so much fire and do everything we've set out to do. We can slowly observe and integrate what we desire to integrate, to build the platform more of a natural way. And as we enter into the second part of the cycle, the south, we start to enter into our adolescent stage of life, right? Where we're beginning to have desires, for instance, sexually, desires to experience things, to express things, to explore things. So this is arising. The fire within us is building. And as we continue in that direction, in that phase of life, in the south, it builds up, builds up, builds up, right? It continues. And so in this stage, we also feel we're experiencing a lot of things, but we're also experiencing our emotions that are arising through new experiences, through desires, through our passions, and what we're experiencing in relation to what we desire to experience and express. And so emotions arise. So within this stage, we're into action, we're into fire, but we're observing the emotions that we have, the passion. Sometimes it involves other emotions like anger, joy, celebration, creativity, many aspects of life that we want to experience in this stage. And it's really good for us because the fire is building, it's building up, building up, building up. And then as we are completing this cycle of reaching the full moon in its climax, we enter into adulthood stage of life, where we're becoming not only adults but also parents, naturally for many of us. So in this stage, we're learning new things, and the moon itself and the fire that has been building has reached its climax and is now starting to die off. So we're feeling, in a sense, a lack of, or a release. And in that stage of life, we're having to let go of many things. When you think about having a kid, the things that you have to let go of to be committed as a parent, you have to begin releasing yourself in many ways and be committed to serving the needs of others. That's a good example. You also have to be able to master the planning of your life in the physical ways, because you're planning not only for yourself but also in many cases for others. So it can become very mentally strong to be able to plan and to have logic and to know what needs to be done. And as a parent, I'm sure you could relate if you are parents or have seen parents trying to pull everything together just to get out the door. So you'll see that in this third quarter of the moon cycle, we're also being triggered in many ways with the fire that's being released. So what's happening here is that, oh my God, I'm so tired right now. We're just releasing here in the West towards a state of either accepting or resisting. And this change that's occurring here now for me is that we don't have that energy flowing through us so much more. So just that change alone is bringing us to recognize a contrast. And in that contrast, the mind also comes in and can be triggered and questioning or doubting or fearing the darkness that is arising in the night. And therefore it's allowing us to see parts of ourselves that we don't always see, especially if we were just always like, yeah, let's party, let's do this. No, this phase begins to show us what we would call the shadow side. As the moon dies off, the shadow appears, and in doing so, it provides us with many gifts to receive, which are disguised as challenges or barriers or obstacles. And it may seem like it's the outside world that's doing it, and it is in part, but what is arising within ourselves through this stage? What are we being taught about ourselves? What are the limitations we're placing upon ourselves in moving forward, in which we set out to desire to move forward in? The seeds that we planted at the start of the year, at the start of the life. And as adults, you have like a midlife crisis a lot of times if you're not aligned, if you're not in balance, and you're not able to let go of many things that life has asked you to let go of. Sickness can also arise within the body and the mind very quickly, very easily in the stages. So it's a time to let go, time to release, and open up for the fourth and final cycle and stage of life, the direction of the north, and the stage of becoming an elder, or what we call senior citizens, to be able to release the self completely and move into a stage of connection, to a stage of being whole as a being, to a stage of innocence, purity, joy, freedom in many ways. But in other ways, you're also being further asked to let go of things that you haven't yet been willing to let go of. You know, physically our bodies are beginning to change, and our health may be changing for some people if we haven't let go of things, as I said earlier. So here in this stage, we're learning to really nurture our connection to spirit, our connection to life beyond the physical, which we always carry with us, and therefore be able to be a great observer, a great supporter, a great nurturer, shining this light through us in celebration to those around us in different stages of life, for instance. And we're able to shine that light, wisdom and understanding that comes from seeing things in hindsight, in the big picture, after things are in the end, and reflect that light back through our own life, releasing, forgiving, coming back to innocence. The same thing at the end of the moon cycle, we're able to extend that hindsight, that awareness, that understanding in complete gratitude to what we experience, gratitude to who we are. And in doing so, there's no pressure to be or to do anything else. There's only simply to be. And in our ability to be, the self is released and life flows through us naturally in perfection. In time, of course, for us to let go of the body, move in to the space between the space, the great abyss, the space between death and life, wiping away the idea of death even occurring, and seeing that there's no longer anything to fear. So in this space, we also have in the moon cycle, as we celebrate 28 days, we give ourselves this extra time in between to reflect and to know what we desire for the next birth, the next stage of life, the next moon cycle, the next wave of light. Before we plant our seeds, we must know what seeds we desire to plant. So I hope this helps in understanding. It went a bit longer than I'd hoped, and I became a lot more tired than I had hoped. But it's a good starting point. And hopefully it helps you understand what's occurring here, now, and forever. Thank you so much for taking this time.